Okay, this video is about law of cosines. The last one we talked about was law of sines. When we use law of cosines is when we have these two cases of when we're given these two cases. When we're given side angle side or when we're given side side side. That's when we use law of cosines. Like last time when we talked about law of sines, when do we use that? When you're given two angles or when you're given side side angle, and that can be the ambiguous case. So on your worksheet that you have that we're going to fill out, that you're going to fill out as you watch this, we have example 1 and example 2. That's what I'm about to do with you guys. But this is what the law of cosine says. It says little a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times the cosine of a. You will need your calculator for this because we'll be doing inverse cosines. And so in example 1, we're going to round everything to the nearest tenth. So this is example 1. I know that your book uses alpha and gamma and beta. That's fine, but it's just annoying. So I'm just going to use capital A, B, and C instead. So it means the same thing. So capital A would be alpha, capital B would be beta, and gamma is what I'm using in place of C. All right, so example 1, this is what they give us. So if you don't have a picture, draw yourself a triangle, any triangle. So here's the one I'm going to draw for this one. This is A, this is B, and this is C. This is little a, this is little b, and this is little c. Sorry, little c. So what did they give us? Let's see. They said that angle A right here is 86.6 degrees. They said that B is equal to 15.0 meters, and that C over here is equal to 24.0 meters. So if you look at the information they give you a side, an angle, and a side. The angle is enclosed by the two sides that are given. That qualifies as being side angle side. So that means we're going to use law of cosine. So how you begin this process is you find the side across from the only angle you're given. The side we do not know is little a, so we're going to find that. And so how do you decide which formula to use? You pick the formula that starts off little a. And so if you notice the way these formulas go, the one on the left side, little a, capital A, the angle is what ends this formula. If you look at the angle the formula that starts with little b, capital B is how that one starts. And if you look at the angle that has little c, capital C is how that one starts. So these are kind of easy to remember. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to find the length of that side. Once we know that side, we have an angle and a side, we can go back and use the law of sines to figure out the rest of this. And you could also use law of cosines, but law of sines is just easier. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so if we're looking for A, we got to do this. We got to say A squared. I'm just going to write the formula down. A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times the cosine of angle A. All right. A squared is what we don't know, so write down A squared. B is 15, so we're going to say 15 squared. C is 24 squared minus 2 times 15 times 24 times the cosine of angle A, which we do know, 86.6 degrees. So now get your calculator, and we're going to put this in. I'll tell you as I'm entering my information in how I'm entering it so you can mimic that, so you'll know how to enter it properly. I'm going to say 15 squared plus 24 squared, and then I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to say minus parentheses 2 times 15 times 24 times the cosine of 86. I'm going to make sure my calculator is in degrees, or else this whole thing is going to be wrong because I'm putting it in degrees. 2 times 15 times 24 times the cosine of 86.6. And that gives me 758.299. So if you look at that, that's what A squared equals to. So now I'm going to leave all that in my calculator and just hit the square root button. So hit second square root and then hit your above the minus sign, the answer button. And it should take the square root of all that. Let's see. Hit second square root, second answer, and then that gives me 27.5. So that's what A is equal to. All right, cool. Now we know what A is 27.5, and if we give it units, 27.5 meters is what that's going to be. All right, now we know this side, we know this angle, we know this side, and we know this side. All that's left to do is find those two angles. Let's use law of sines. Now, there is a better way to go here. We should choose, when we're given side, angle, side, first we should elect to find the smallest angle of the two that are given. So how do you know which angle is smallest? Well, if you look across from angle B, the length is 15. If you look across from angle C, the length is 24. The bigger the length across, the bigger the angle. So C is bigger than B. So when you're using law of sines for side, angle, sine, the first angle you should try to find is the smallest one, because that prevents getting a weird answer in your calculator, because your calculator, when you take the inverse cosine, will pull between the quadrants 1 and 2, and so if you get an obtuse angle, it'll give you no, when you use the law of sines, when you use the law of sines, it's pulling between quadrants. Remember the inverse sine quadrants 1 and 4? That's what it's going to pull from. And it's going to give you a negative angle if you get an obtuse angle. So to avoid that confusion, if you find the smallest angle first when you're doing SAS, then you're in good shape. So that's what I'm going to do. I said, who is smaller? B is smaller. So let's find that. Let's say law of sine says the sine of B over little b, which is 15, is equal to the sine of the angle that we know, 86.6, divided by A, which is 27.5. Now we're just going to cross multiply and take the inverse sine, which we've done plenty of times before when we were doing the last video. So let's see, I'm going to say 15 times the sine of 86.6 divided by 27.5, and I have 0.54449. I'm going to take the inverse sine of that, and that tells me that B is equal to 32.99. Now we're rounding to the nearest tenth, right? So I have to round 32.99 to the nearest tenth, so that's going to round this up to 33.0 meters. That's B. The only thing left to do is find angle C. The easiest way to do this, and I'm going to go for the easiest way, is to take 180 degrees, which is what all of the angles add up to, and subtract angle A, which I know, and subtract angle B, which I know. So angle C is going to equal to 180 minus 86.6 minus 33.0. And when I do that, let's see, 180 minus 33 minus 86.6, I get that angle C is 60 degrees, 60.4 degrees is that one. All right, that's example 1. Let's go to example 2. This is what they give us. Draw yourself a triangle. Any triangle will do. Label it A, B, and C. And then say, what did they tell me? They told me that little a is equal to 217 feet, 217 feet. Little b is 362 feet. And little c is equal to 345 feet. So let's just observe which is going to be the biggest angle. The angle that has the biggest side across from it. So 362 is the biggest. Angle B is the biggest. Then angle C, and angle A is the smallest. That's how you can tell that. What information did they give us? They gave us this side and this side and this side. They gave us side, side, side. When you're given side, 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 you use law of cosine. So that's what we're going to use. Now, how do you begin this process? When you're given side, 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 the best way to do this is find the biggest angle first. Find the biggest angle first. So which angle is biggest? We already decided that B was the biggest. So it's reverse of when you're using, like when you get down to law of sines, you're like, oh, choose the smallest angle to stay out of trouble for side, angle, side. How I kind of put this in my mind is the word small is S-M-A-L-L. It has an S and an A in it. Side, angle, side has an S and an A in it. So use the smallest first, side, side, side. Use the biggest, the super is the biggest one. So I'm going to go for B. What do I do? If I want angle B, I choose the only formula that has angle B in it. The middle one. It starts with little b on that side, and it ends with angle B on that side. So use the B squared. So here's the formula. B squared is A squared plus C squared minus 2AC times the cosine of angle B. And let's just fill in what we know. B squared is going to be 362 squared is equal to A squared, 217 squared plus C squared, 345 squared minus 2 times A times C. A is 217. C is 345, and times the cosine of angle B, which we do not know. All right, so this time we know everything else except for the angle. Listen to how I talk through entering this in my calculator, and you do the same thing. I'll tell you what I'm going to do so you can understand. I'm going to put this number in and square it, and then I'm going to begin to solve this equation for the cosine of B. So first, I'm going to put this in. I'm going to subtract 217 squared. I'm going to subtract 345 squared. And then I'm going to divide by parentheses -2 times 217 times 345. And that will leave me with the cosine of B on my calculator. At that point, I'm going to take the inverse cosine. So that's what's going to happen here. Here we go. Take your calculator and say 362 squared and hit enter. Now I'm going to say minus 217 squared, and I hit enter. I'm going to say minus 345 squared. I hit enter. So now on my calculator I have negative 35,070. That is this number minus this number minus this number. What is left is this. So I'm going to divide both sides by -2 times 217 times 345. So I'm hitting the divider, parentheses, -2 times 217 times 345, close parentheses. And so what I have on my calculator now is 0.23422. That is equal to the cosine of B. Now I'm going to take the inverse cosine of both sides. The inverse cosine, I hit the wrong button. Let me see if I can go back. Okay, I want to take the inverse cosine of that answer, and I get 76.5. 76, so B is equal to 76.5 degrees. Okay, now I'm going to use the law of sines. At this point, it doesn't matter which one you pick. Since we found the biggest angle we could, that took care of the obtuse angle, if there was one, and there isn't one because that's just 76. But after if you make that good choice at the beginning, go for the biggest angle when you're using law of cosines. Then when you get to use law of sines, pick any one. It doesn't matter at this point when you're doing this case. So let's just pick one. Let me do the setup. What do I have to find? I have to find angle A. So I'll say that the sine of angle A over little a, 217 feet, is equal to the sine of 76.5 divided by B, which is 362, is equal to the sine of C, which I don't know, divided by 345 feet. Okay, so now, first I'm going to look at this. I just wrote all that down for convenience. First I'm going to use this. I'm going to say 217 times sine of 76.5 divided by 362 and take the inverse sine, and that's going to give me angle A. I'll talk it out in my calculator. Here I go. 217 times the sine of 76.5, and I hit enter. I get 211, but now I'm going to divide that by 362, and I get 0.58288. Now I'm going to take the inverse sine of that, and it gives me that angle A is equal to 35.7 when I round. All right, so now I need to go find C. So I'm going to use this information right here to solve for C. So this is how it goes. 345 times the sine of 76.5 divided by 362 gives me 0.9267, and that is what the sine of C equals to. I'm going to take the inverse of C and find that, although I didn't really have to do that, did I? Oh, I don't even have to do that. I could have just subtracted this from 180. That's really what I should have done, but this will be a check. Let me do the inverse sine of that. And I get 67.9, so C is 67.9 degrees. Now, as a check, I didn't have to do the law of sines for that, but I did for some reason. You could have just subtracted it from 180. So let me go that route and just see what I get. If I took 180 minus 76.5 minus what I got for A, 35.7, I get 67.8. So I'm a little bit off. It's off by a decimal point. So if you got 67.8 or 67.9, it will be okay. All right. That is the first video on law of cosines.